Good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I'm going over my Week 14 NFL Power Rankings for the 2021 NFL season. I do this series on the channel every single week, so if you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Only 11% of you are subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content and you want to see more like it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. With that, we're going to get right into the video. First off, we have the dumpster fire. As always, this week there's a new number 32 in the league, which is the Houston Texans. The Detroit Lions have had that spot for the majority of the season. Not the whole season, but the last like 5-6 weeks usually. And yeah, they got their first win this week, and the Texans got blown out 31-0 by the Colts. So with that, we have the Texans at 32, the Lions at 31, the Jaguars at 30, and the Jets at 29. Next, we have the bad category. We have the Bears, the Giants, the Falcons, and the Panthers. All of these teams have been up and down this season, mostly down for the Bears and the Giants. The Falcons and Panthers have had more mood swings than the other two teams, but I don't think any of these teams are realistically making the playoffs right now. None of them are playing very strong football. The Panthers have played very poorly last week. This week they didn't play, but Cam Newton came back very poorly for them. The Falcons have been playing bad. The Giants won a game against the Eagles, but it was a very low-scoring game. And the Bears just can't get anything going against anyone. At 23 and 24, we have the Seahawks and the Saints. I have the Saints at 24. The Saints are currently 5-7. The Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons are all 5-7 in the NFC South. So it's the Bucs and then everyone else. The Saints have lost 5 in a row. A lot of that is because they have so many injuries. They have, like, Alvin Kamara is injured. They never got Michael Thomas this season. Jameis Winston got out, and then Taysom Hill has been inconsistent. Trevor Siemian was inconsistent. So the Saints have had a lot of issues this season. As for Seattle, Russell Wilson got injured, and then he came back not Russell Wilson-like. Russell Wilson's never dealt with injury before because, well, he's dealt with injury, but he's never gone out for injury. This week they bounced back a little bit. They beat the 49ers. If they win again next week, they might still be holding on to their playoff hopes, and they might jump into the next category. But right now, the Saints and the Seahawks are just barely holding on to those playoff chances, but neither of these teams look very good. Outside contenders, we have the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings. The Raiders at 22, Broncos at 21, and Vikings at 20. The Raiders and Broncos do win some good games here and there, but they're very inconsistent. They're 6-6 right now. The Vikings are 5-7. All three of these teams have beaten some good teams, and they've lost some really poor games. The Broncos probably have the best unit of any of these three teams in their defense. Their defense has been very consistent the past few weeks. They barely allow over 20 points in most games, but their offense just can't seem to get it going a lot of times. Especially tonight. They got down the field better than Kansas City did, but they just couldn't put up points. They missed it. They went for it on 4th down instead of kicking a couple field goals. They muffed a punt because their guy ran into their other guy. They killed themselves today against the Chiefs. The Raiders and the Vikings have won some good games, but they've also just played very poorly in other ones. The Raiders are on a downward spiral, and the Vikings have lost 2 in a row since they beat the Packers, and I thought that they were a really good team. Playoff hopefuls, we have the Browns, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Steelers, and the Washington football team. I have the Browns at 19, the Eagles at 18, Dolphins at 17, Steelers at 16, and Washington at 15. This is the first time this season, they might have been in the beginning of the season, but this is the first time since like week 4 that Washington has been in the top 16. And that is because they are currently on a 4-game winning streak. Dolphins on a 5-game winning streak. Both of these teams have beaten some, not a lot of good opponents, but they've beaten some good opponents. Washington beat the Seahawks last week with Russell Wilson. They won a pretty solid game this week against the Raiders. The Dolphins beat the Ravens during their win streak. So there have been a lot of easy games, but they have won some difficult games. Both of these teams started off very poorly. The Dolphins 2-7, the Washington football team 2-6. Now the Dolphins are 5-7, or 6-7, and Washington is 6-6. So these two teams have definitely made up for the beginning of their seasons. The Dolphins aren't in the playoff race as much as Washington is because the NFC playoff race is a lot more open. The AFC playoff race is very, very tight. It's going to take a lot for Miami to break in there, but they definitely have the ability to. At 19, we have the Browns, who are 6-6. The Browns started off, they went the opposite. They started off, I believe, 5-3. And they're now 6-6. They played very poorly the past 2 weeks, including a couple of monumental losses. One of them being 45-7 to the Patriots. Another one being last week that lost by quite a bit. Eagles are at number 18. The Eagles have been generally upwards recently. They are currently 6-7, but they did lose last week to the Giants, which was kind of a bad loss. Giants aren't a great team, but the Eagles are generally moving upwards, and then this week it was against the Jets, but it was a get-right game for them. They came in there, they beat the Jets 30-18. They did get right in their get-right game, so they took advantage of that. They got the win. Next week they're resetting and they're fighting again for that playoff spot. As for the Steelers are 6-5-1 after beating the Ravens this week. I would have them higher than 16, but they've looked really bad until this game. Like the past 2 weeks leading up to this game, they've looked so bad, capping off with a 41-10 loss to the Bengals. Washington is just playing better football right now. The Steelers did beat the Ravens, so I will give them credit for that. But the Ravens also haven't been playing well. They haven't scored 20 points in their last 4 games. Like, they've been winning games, but it's been on their defense. And the Steelers won because the Ravens went for 2 instead of just kicking the extra point and taking it to overtime. So the Steelers played a good game this week, but I don't know if I trust them to continue to play well in the near future. Next with the Moody Teenagers, and I forgot to change the background from earlier because one second. I forgot to change the background because I didn't know it was gonna be. There we go. Now we have Ravens colors. I usually try to match the colors with the best team in that category. I didn't do it with the Vikings either because I had the Eagles lower earlier, so I moved people around anyways. In the Moody Teenagers, we have the 49ers, we have the Bengals, we have the Chargers, and we have the Ravens at 14, 13, 12, and 11. The Ravens haven't been in the top 10 for a while, and a lot of people have gotten upset at me for not having an 8-3 team, or a 7-3 team, or a 6-3 team in the top 10. That's just because I don't believe in them. Their offense hasn't been playing well. And they lost to the Dolphins, and then they continued to play fairly poorly against the Bears, and then they played fairly poorly against the Browns last week. Lamar being, I think, the first quarterback ever to win a game with 4 interceptions. Then this week against the Steelers, they lost. And so I don't even know if they went down at all. I think they might have even just stayed in the same. I think they might have been number 11 or 12 last week. So they might not even decreased at all from their loss, but a lot of other teams went down around them. So yeah, if the Bengals are above them, the Bengals lose the way that they did, which was not a very great game for them. The 49ers, I think, were above them last week. They lost. The Vikings might have even been ahead of them last week. I don't think the Vikings were ahead of them last week, but the Vikings were ahead of them a couple weeks ago. So the Ravens have just been consistently doing just enough to win. And I think that works in the regular season, but when playoffs come around, that's not going to do it. I can't put the Ravens in the top 10 until I see some more decisive victories from them. Until I see their offense gelling like it did earlier in the season. As for the Chargers, Bengals, and 49ers, Chargers and Bengals more specifically, I have no idea whether or not their games are the most crazy things in the world. The Bengals beat the Steelers last week 41-10, and then this week they got demolished by the Chargers in the first quarter and then there was no coming back for them, and then they ended up losing like 41-22 or something. Like, these two teams are so confusing. They're good teams, and they're probably both going to make the playoffs. But it's so difficult to try and gauge where they are. The AFC playoff race is currently closing up. The Bengals and Chargers will probably get the 6 and 7 seed. The 5 seed will be the loser of the AFC East. But the Bengals and Chargers are just so confusing. And I have them above the 49ers simply because the 49ers broke the Seahawks 4-game losing streak. I had the 49ers almost in the top 10 last week. They were the 10 or 11. I dropped them a few places this week because they broke the Seahawks 4-game losing streak. Like, you don't do that's rough for a team that's trying to make the playoffs in the NFC. I think that they just dropped to 6 and 6, so they're still in the playoffs right now. I'm not sure if they have a tiebreak over Washington or not, but I think that they're currently in the playoffs, and I think that they will make the playoffs, but this was a tough loss for them this week. Next category, we have the playoff caliber teams. This includes the Titans, the Rams, the Bills, the Colts, and the Cowboys. Last week I had the Titans a little higher than some people thought I should have had them. I had planned on putting them at 10. I switched it last minute. They're at 10 this week. The reason why they're not lower is because they really haven't played that bad. Last week they played against the Patriots defense without their 2 top wide receivers or their top 3 running backs, and they still made it a game. It was a 3-point game at the half, and they're not playing terrible football. They beat the Rams without Derrick Henry. They beat the Saints without Derrick Henry. They're not playing terrible right now, and they have a lot of injuries. I think that they're going to be getting some wide receivers back over the next couple of weeks. If they start getting their running backs back and potentially Derrick Henry by the playoffs, then I think that they'll definitely be a top 10 team again. At 9, we have the Rams. The Rams broke their 3-game losing streak this week against the Jaguars. It was a pretty decisive win, but I just can't put a whole lot of stock in a decisive win over the Jaguars. They're currently 8-4, so they're gonna be in the playoffs, but they've been playing poorly the past few weeks. We'll see how they play next week against Arizona, and whether or not what they really look like right now. I don't think they'll win next week, but I think they'll make it a good game. And if they don't, then I'm not even sure if they're a top 10 team right now. I have the Bills at 8. This is subject to change depending on what happens tomorrow night. Hopefully the Bills win, but even if they lose, I'm probably going to keep them above the Rams and the Titans. I think that even if they lose to the Patriots, they're still better than both of those teams. The reason why they're below the Colts is because the Colts beat them 41-15. The Colts are 7-6. The Bills are 8-4. But are 7-4, but the Colts are playing better football right now. The Bills are 3-3 in their last 6 games. The Colts have only lost 1 or 2 of their last 6, and they've had a lot of very decisive wins. And last week against Tampa, they played very well. They lost in a last-minute touchdown by Tom Brady, 38-31. But the Colts are playing really good football, and although they're 7-6 and might not make the playoffs, they're a top 10 team right now, in my opinion, because of their running game, because of the way Carson Wentz is utilizing the running game, and the way that their defense has been playing recently. And at 6, we have the Cowboys. Not much to be said. The Cowboys have been down recently, but they're still a strong team. They got it done against the Saints this week. It was kind of a rough game, but it wasn't a pretty game, but it was a really decisive win. The Saints aren't a great team, but it was a get-right win after a couple losses in a row to the Chiefs and the Raiders. So, yeah, it was a get-right win for them. They got both CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper back. You could tell the atmosphere was different. They had a defensive touchdown. They were just really clicking. And I had them at 6 last week. I didn't think that they deserved to be at 6 last week. This week, I think that they deserve to be back up there. Strong contenders, we have the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Buccaneers. Since last week, the Buccaneers and the Chiefs have swapped. Although Kansas City won today, I'm very concerned about their offense. Their defense has been playing well recently, but in the last 6 weeks, Patrick Mahomes has, if you don't include the Raiders game, which you can't really do that, but outside of the Raiders game, Mahomes has 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Including the Raiders game, he has 7 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. in their last 6 games. Their offense just isn't consistently working. And although they had a fantastic game against the Raiders, who have a really bad defense, against the better defenses they've played, their offense really hasn't clicked. They've barely scored over 20 points. In fact, they've had defensive touchdowns that have scored almost as many points as their offense. They had 7 points off of their defense this week and 16 from their offense. So I just don't trust Kansas City's offense right now, even though their defense is getting better. Their defense is actually playing really well, especially this week against the Broncos. But they've been averaging under 15 points over the last 4 weeks. But I just don't trust Kansas City's offense. I put them up to number 3 the last couple of weeks because they played really well against the Raiders and they played really well against the Cowboys. But this game this week against the Broncos just wasn't it for me. I thought I was going to see Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill going off. They didn't. I was just a little disappointed by the way that Kansas City played this week, so I knocked them down. On the other hand, Tampa played a really solid, really strong game. Tom Brady had 300 whatever yards and 4 touchdowns. And the Patriots didn't play this week, so I figured I'll put Tampa above them, I'll put Kansas City below them, and I'll keep them where they are because they didn't really do anything. Well, they play tomorrow, obviously. I know that they play tomorrow, but they haven't played yet this week. So everyone in the comments saying that the Patriots play tomorrow, yeah, I know the Patriots play tomorrow. I'm going to be watching the game. That was me misspeaking. And in the NFL's elite, we have the Cardinals and the Packers. These have been the 2 teams, number 1 and 2 for however many weeks in a row. They're clearly the 2 best teams in the league. I don't think anyone can dispute that. I know people are arguing whether the Cardinals or the Packers are better. The Packers beat the Cardinals with Aaron Rodgers, whatever, but the Cardinals only have 1 loss with Kyler Murray, and then him and DeAndre Hopkins came back this week, and the Cardinals' offense clearly looked different. They clearly looked in sync. They clearly looked like the Cardinals, and so that's what I've been waiting for. They came back. Everything clicked. No surprise there. So Arizona at 1, Green Bay at 2. So those are my power rankings for Week 14. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to comment your thoughts down below. This was a really bizarre week of football. There was a lot of really bad, overall bad games from both sides. Chiefs-Broncos was bad. Ravens-Steelers was bad. There was a lot of bad games. But, yeah, this has been a very odd season. And it'll be very interesting to see all of these very inconsistent teams in the playoffs. Usually the playoffs are very, you can tell who's going to win games in the playoffs. This year I have no clue. All of the teams are inconsistent, and the teams that are playing consistently right now might not even be in the playoffs. So it's just a really odd season. Hope you guys enjoyed my power rankings. Again, comment down below your thoughts, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.